And so it's the trade deficit is often described as us sending out pieces of paper and getting goods and services, which sounds like a really good deal. But then the extra step of that you mentioned is that they take those slips of paper, or really those electronic digits that they have, and then they buy our stocks, they buy our real estate, they buy our private equity, they buy our corporate bonds and government bonds. And so they end up owning a larger and larger share of corporate America as part of their kind of accumulated trade surpluses and reserve assets and international private assets. The kind of the consequence of this, if you kind of like view the foreign sector as an intermediary, we're basically constantly kind of taking economic vibrancy out of Michigan and Ohio and rural Pennsylvania where the steel mills were. We're kind of taking it out of our Rust Belt, causing it to become the Rust Belt, and then we're stuffing it back into financial assets in New York and Silicon Valley and certain other places, mainly along the coasts. And this went on for approximately four plus decades, really ever since you can say kind of the early 80s. This really kind of started, and these are cumulative. So 1 year of that is not a giant deal, but when you have 4+ decades of it, that causes major imbalance. And a lot of academics will say, well, there's still room to go. This is not kind of an emergency. But on top of that, there is this political overlay that basically that voters get angrier and angrier when they're on the wrong side of that imbalance. And although many of them they don't work in finance, they might not be able to articulate the exact mechanisms that are causing it, but they have this feeling that something's rigged against them, that something is just not right, that they're constantly going uphill, that they're on a treadmill. And so we start to see this it manifests in rising voter populism. It manifests in different priorities of when people vote. And so I do think that there's a pretty strong mandate to try to go after the trade deficit. But I think the way I look at it is that because it's decades in the making, the best that any kind of one term can do is try to, start changing the direction of it